Good morning. Today we're going to talk about segment lengths. So until now we've really been talking only about angles except for radii and diameters, but now we're going to talk about segment lengths. So in this first example, how do I find the segment lengths that are in here? So how long is C, how long is D? Again, I'm not talking about angles. So this first when they intersect inside the circle, the equation is going to be A times B equals C times D. And let me make that a little thicker. In the second one, when they intersect outside the circle, so it's an intersecting secant outside the circle, okay? So these intersect inside here. These are intersecting outside here. So this equation is going to be A times A plus B equals C times C plus D. And this third one, when you have an intersecting secant and a tangent, so remember this is a tangent because it's tangent right here, and this is a secant where it is a line that intersects the circle twice. Okay, so that equation is going to be A squared equals B times B plus C. That will help us solve for segments. So in this first one, this number 1, I know that 14 times 15 equals 10 times x. And in the second one, I know that 6 times 6 equals 4 times 5x minus 1. I'm going to pause and do the algebra. So the answer to number 1 would be 21, and the answer to number 2 would be 2. I want to find BD, so now I'm going to take that 2, I'm going to find BD, I'm going to plug that 2 back into there. So I actually get 5 times 2 minus 1, but then I have to add that 4 right here. I'm looking for BD. So this is going to be 10 minus 1 is 9, plus 4 is 13. So 13 would be your answer. Okay, let's try 4. So in 4, I have 14 times 2x plus 1 equals 18 times 2x minus 5. And I'm again going to pause and do the algebra. You get that x is 13. Now it wants me to find TQ, just this little piece right here, so I'm going to plug the 13 right into there, and I get 2, plug in the 13 plus 1, that's going to be 26 plus 1. Alright, let's move on to this next one. So here is where we have two secants that intersect outside. So I know that's going to be 8 times 8 plus 19 equals 9 times 9 plus x. Okay, so the formula was A times A plus B equals C plus C times C plus D. Okay, so I'm going to pause and do the algebra. So in 5, I would solve for x and get x equals 15. It doesn't ask me to find any little piece, so this would be my answer. So on these, I'm going to take a little different strategy. Let me make it a little bigger first. So I'm actually going to add A plus B and C plus D first, because I know the formula is A times 8 plus 3x plus 4. So this is going to be 3x plus 12, and this is going to be 5x plus 9. So I know the formula is 8 times 8 plus 3x plus 4 equals 7 times 7 plus 5x plus 2. And now I'm going to pause to do the algebra. So I'm going to get x equals 3. And I'm going to check to make sure, and all they want me to do is solve for x. So let me do one more over here. So I know that this is going to be x plus 20. And this guy over here is going to be x plus 14. So I'm going to do a times a plus b equals c times c plus d. I'm going to pause and do the algebra. So now I've gotten that x equals 10, but it asks me to find yz. Yz is this little piece right here. So I know that yz is x minus 1, so yz is going to be 9. Okay, the last the last kind is when I have a tangent and a secant meet outside. So if you remember, the equation is a squared equals c times c plus d. And I get that x equals 14. They've asked me to solve for x, so I've got x equals 14. Okay, so let's look at 12. I know that 12 is 3x squared equals 9 times 9 plus 16. This is going to give me 9x squared. And this is going to give me 225. I'm going to divide both sides by 9, and I'm going to get x squared equals 25. And now I'm going to take a square root of both sides, and I'm going to get x equals plus or minus 5. Now I have to check both of those answers. Okay, don't forget, I get plus or minus 5 because if I plug 5 in here, 5 times 5 is 25. If I plug negative 5 in here, I get negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. So both of those answers meet that equation. I need to see if my solution works. I know if I plug 5 in here, I get a positive 15, and that does equal 9 times 9 plus 16. But if I plug a negative 5 in here, I get a negative 15, and my side cannot be a negative 15, that's segment. So the only answer here would be a positive 5. Okay, let's try number 13. Number 13, if you remember, is the simple one. X minus 1 times x plus 6 equals 12 times 10. And we've been talking in my class about the word FOIL, and really it's the word distribute. So I'm going to distribute this x to the first one, and I'm going to distribute the x to the second one. And I'm going to now distribute the negative 1 to the first one, and the negative 1 to the second one. So I'm going to get x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 120. Okay, if you can remember that every time you see a squared, the rule is call it a quadratic. That is the function family that it is part of that you learned in algebra last year. And remember that for a quadratic, you set it equal to 0 and solve. Okay, so I'm going to set this equal to 0, and I'm going to get x squared plus 5x minus 126 equals 0. And to solve this, I'm going to factor. So I'm going to open up two binomials, and I know x squared is made by x times x. So this is made by x times x. And I know that 126 is 14 times 9. And I need a positive 5, so positive 14 minus 9 will give me a positive 5. Okay? If you remember from Algebra 1, that means that this is going to have a positive 9 and this is going to have a negative 14 solution. Okay? We will go over some other ways to solve in class. Another way is to put it in your calculator and y equals and look at the zeros. Another way is to do the quadratic formula. Okay, so the only solution that I can use is 9, because if I plug a negative 14 into there, it's going to give me a negative solution. A couple more examples and then we're done. So if you remember outside, it's going to be a times a plus b and equals c times c plus d. And I'm going to, so we're going to have a plus a times b, a plus b, sorry, equals c times c plus d. And we're going to multiply this out. Over on the right, this is a simple distribute, so x times x is going to be x squared, and x times 15 is going to be plus 15x. Again, because of the squared, this is a quadratic, so I'm going to subtract the 154 to the other side and set this equal to 0. Okay, this time I'm going to put this in the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is, you probably want to write this on the bottom, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this is something that you should have learned in algebra next year. And so I'm going to walk through this one and then we'll be finished. This number right here would be a, this would be b, and this would be c. And so I'm going to fill that into this formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so I put it all in the quadratic formula. If you put this in your calculator, you get 841, and the square root of 841 happens to be 29. Now, notice, this is negative 15 plus and minus 29. But if I do negative 15 minus 29, I'm going to get a negative answer here. And I know I can't plug a negative answer up in here. So I only did negative 15 plus 29, and I got x equals 7. It asks me to solve for x equals 7. All right, see you on Monday.